It all started on a Sunday that should have been completely ordinary. I wasn't even supposed to be home that day. The plan was to spend the weekend in Cincinnati visiting my parents. Haley and I had been married for almost 5 years, and even though we were both busy with work, I always made time for family when I could. But the visit got cut short. Train delays, some scheduling mix-up with my folks, and honestly, I wasn't feeling the trip that much to begin with. So, I grabbed an earlier train home and figured I'd surprise Haley. Maybe we'd go out for lunch, hang on the couch, have one of those lazy Sundays we used to love before everything got complicated. When I pulled into the driveway, I didn't think much of anything. The house looked the same, quiet, still. But as soon as I stepped inside, something shifted. You know how sometimes your gut knows something before your brain does? That's what it felt like. The house wasn't empty. I could hear the shower running upstairs. Not unusual, but the timing threw me. Haley rarely showered in the middle of the day. Especially not on a Sunday. Especially not when she thought I was supposed to be out of town for another 8 hours. Then I saw them. A pair of men's sneakers by the front door. Worn in, bigger than mine, not even close to my size. Some off-brand pair with frayed laces. They definitely weren't mine, and they didn't belong to anyone I recognized. Not friends, not family. They looked lived in, comfortable, like they'd been there before. That's when I noticed the jacket. It was slung casually over the back of our living room chair, like someone had just dropped it there without a second thought. Next to it, a wrinkled, light blue button-down shirt. The kind someone might take off before stepping into a hot shower. I stared at it for a few seconds, my mind trying to catch up to what my eyes were already screaming. And just like that, a chill ran down my spine. I wasn't supposed to be home, and yet here I was, surrounded by things that didn't belong. And the woman I'd married, the woman I trusted, was in the shower like this was just any other Sunday. I heard the water shut off upstairs. A few moments later, Haley came out of the hallway, wrapped in a robe, a towel coiled tightly around her head. Her eyes widened when she saw me standing there. Just for a second. A flicker. If I'd blinked, I might have missed it. "Adam?" she said, her voice lifting in surprise. "What are you doing home?" I didn't answer right away. Couldn't. I was staring at the shirt again, then at her, then back at the shoes. My brain felt like it was lagging behind the moment. She saw my eyes moving across the room and jumped in fast. "Oh," she said, waving her hand in the direction of the clothes. "That's just Samantha's brother. Remember him? Jake? He was here earlier." She didn't even pause to think. She had the name ready. "He stopped by to pick up a charger he left last weekend. Got caught in the rain, poor guy was drenched. I told him to take a quick shower while I looked for his stuff." Her voice was cheerful, too cheerful. She smiled the whole time she spoke, like she was trying to soften the weirdness of the moment with charm. But her smile didn't touch her eyes. There was something tight in her face, like she was performing, and that's what hit me hardest. It didn't sound like an explanation. It sounded like a script. She didn't ask why I was home early, didn't even pretend to act surprised about it. She just skipped right over it like that detail wasn't important. As if the only thing she needed to do was plug the holes in her story as fast as possible before I could ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. "I was about to make some lunch," she added, stepping lightly into the kitchen. "You hungry? Chicken or pasta?" Just like that, she pivoted, changed the subject, like a magician trying to redirect your attention. "Sure," I muttered. My throat felt dry. I walked into the kitchen behind her, still not saying much. The tile felt cold under my shoes. The whole house felt colder, actually. I watched her move around the kitchen like nothing had happened. She was doing that thing she always did when she was nervous, humming low and off-key, while she pulled things out of the fridge. Her back was to me, and I realized then that she was counting on me to stay silent, to not press her, to let it slide. I've always been the don't make a scene type. She knew that. I hated arguments, and she could charm her way through almost anything. For years, I'd brushed off little oddities because I trusted her. Or maybe because I wanted to. But that day something broke. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quietly. like a hairline fracture finally giving way under too much pressure. Because the truth is, the moment she mentioned Jake, Samantha's brother, I remembered something. Jake wasn't even in town. He'd moved to Oregon 6 months ago. Samantha told us during dinner once, all excited about him starting some new job in Portland. Haley had smiled and nodded. She'd known that. So why lie? I didn't bring it up. I sat there at the kitchen table while she made lunch, pretending I was fine, like I hadn't just been handed the first real clue that something in our marriage was off balance in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. We ate in silence. She chatted a bit about her new fitness program, a call with a client, some vague mention of catching up on emails. She was animated, maybe even overcompensating. But I nodded along, barely tasting the food. My head was somewhere else entirely. When she cleared the dishes and disappeared upstairs again, I stayed in my seat and let the silence wrap around me. That morning I had come home hoping to be surprised in the good way. Maybe find her curled up with a book or cooking something that made the house smell like rosemary and butter. Instead, I found a pair of strange shoes, a stranger's shirt, and a version of my wife who already had her answers prepared before I even asked the questions. I didn't say anything that day. I didn't accuse or confront or rage. But deep down I knew. The foundation of something had shifted, cracked. I could feel it every time I looked at her and saw her looking through me. Whatever I had walked in on that Sunday wasn't just a one-off moment. It was the first ripple of something much bigger. Something dangerous. I just didn't know how far it went. Not yet. After that Sunday, something in me refused to go back to normal, even if, on the outside, I tried to. I didn't bring it up again. I didn't question the sneakers or the shirt or why the shower had been running with another man's clothes lying a few feet away. Haley acted like it never happened, and I let her. But it stuck to me like a splinter under my skin I couldn't dig out. The problem was, once you suspect someone is lying to you, your brain starts dragging every memory up for re-examination. Things you'd brushed off, justified, or laughed about before suddenly look different under the light of suspicion. That's how it started, a slow-motion reel of every time something didn't quite add up. Like the late nights. Haley's job had always been flexible. A year ago, she left her admin position to start an online coaching program. I was proud of her. She'd been excited, driven, said she wanted to help women transform their lives. We'd celebrated the launch with a bottle of wine and a promise to support each other's goals. She got a home office. I helped with her website. We were a team, or so I thought. But after a few months, her schedule became slippery. One minute she'd say she had a session with a client at 6 p.m. and the next she was at the gym for 3 hours. Sometimes she came home flushed, energized, smiling in a way that didn't feel like it came from a workout. Other times she looked distant, like she wasn't completely back yet. Long day? I'd ask. She'd always nod. Yeah, draining. So many calls. But then her phone would buzz from the counter with a name I didn't recognize. Usually just a first name. Or a string of emojis. Once I picked it up reflexively and she snatched it back with a laugh. That's just a client. Confidential stuff, babe. It didn't sit right with me. But I wanted to trust her. I really did. Until I started noticing how often she stepped outside to take calls. Even in the rain. Even when she could have just gone to the spare room. Sometimes I'd glance out the window and see her pacing the patio, one hand gesturing wildly, the other pressed to her ear. If I opened the door, even just a crack, the call would end instantly. She'd pop her head in and say, "Everything okay?" as if I were the one acting strange. Then there were the photos. Haley had always been into social media, part of her business, she said. Brand visibility. But lately, the posts were different. Stylized. Curated. Snapchat ts of cocktails on marble counters, sunsets from high-rise balconies, room service trays with champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries. But never people. Never tags. Just captions like, recharging, finally some clarity, or exactly what I needed. At first, I assumed she was sharing stock images. But one evening, while scrolling through our old photo archive on the iPad, I came across sh*t of her sitting on the exact same balcony from one of her posts, taken 2 years earlier during a weekend trip we'd taken together. She'd cropped me out. Literally cut the photo at the frame so all that remained was her legs curled beneath her and the skyline beyond. She'd posted it like it was new. Like she was alone. That's when the gnawing feeling in my gut turned into something sharper. I started watching her more closely, not out of jealousy, but out of survival. You can't live in a house built on shifting sand without bracing for the moment it collapses. The gym was another sore spot. She'd always been active, but these days she practically lived there. 3-hour workouts, 5 days a week. New leggings, sports bras, a fitness tracker she obsessed over. Sometimes I'd ask if she wanted me to come along and she'd wave it off. It's not your thing, she'd say. Besides, I do classes, you'd hate them. Fair enough. Except once when she forgot her water bottle, I drove it over. I walked in just as her class should have been ending. The front desk didn't have her name on any roster for that hour. I waited near the weight room pretending to scroll my phone. No Haley. She came out from the locker room 20 minutes later, startled when she saw me. You didn't tell me you were coming, she said, forcing a smile. I wanted to bring your bottle. She laughed it off, but I could tell I'd disrupted something. Her eyes darted toward the parking lot before settling on me. After that, she started going at different hours. The excuses began stacking up like clutter in a room no one wanted to clean. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and reach across the bed only to find her side cold and empty. She'd say she couldn't sleep, that she was downstairs meditating or journaling. Once I came down and found her half asleep on the couch, phone tucked under her leg. When I asked what she'd been doing, she said, just texting Sam about her breakup. But her voice cracked slightly on the last word. It was always just Sam, or just a client, or just one of the women in my group chat. Always someone else. Always an answer that came a little too quickly. The worst part wasn't the lies themselves, it was how easily they came. She used to tell me everything. Now everything was curated. Filtered. Stripped of the messy, human details that made our life feel real. I remember one night, this was maybe 2 weeks after the Jake incident, I woke up around 3 a.m. and found her sitting on the kitchen floor, staring at her phone. The room was dark except for the light from the screen. She didn't see me at first. Her face was soft, almost sad. Then she noticed me and jumped. Can't sleep? I asked. She nodded. Nightmares. I poured her some water and sat down across from her. She smiled and leaned her head on my shoulder like old times. But something about the moment felt hollow. I didn't ask what the nightmare was. I didn't want to know. Because deep down I had the feeling she wasn't dreaming about me. I started to track time like a detective. Where she said she'd be versus where she actually was. Not officially, not with apps or trackers or spyware. Just notes in my phone. Timestamps. Left for client lunch at 11:20. Back at 3:15. Gym from 5 to 7, came home in full makeup. I even started recording receipts. A gas station transaction on a road far from her claimed meeting spot. A credit card charge at a bar we'd never been to on a night she said she was home watching Netflix. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because once you accuse someone of betrayal, the innocence, real or not, is gone. You can't take that back. I needed more than gut feelings and Instagram captions. I needed proof. And I had a feeling I was about to get it. The proof came on a Thursday. I wish I could say it hit me like lightning. Something dramatic. A flash of rage, a scream, a broken dish against the wall. But the truth was quieter than that, more surgical. Like being cut open slowly without anesthesia, the pain dull at first, but deep and undeniable. Haley had told me she'd be gone for 2 days on a strategy session. That's how she described it, vague, corporate sounding, like a euphemism. Supposedly a retreat with other coaches rented out some resort in a nearby city. We're gonna brainstorm our next quarter launches, she'd said. Vision boards, growth planning, that kind of stuff. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the version of her I used to trust was long gone. Replaced by someone too good at saying the right thing at the right time, someone who'd learned how to lie without blinking. She left Thursday morning with a suitcase and a forced kiss on my cheek. I stood in the doorway and watched her drive away. She didn't look back. That evening I was doing something mundane, trying to pay for a streaming service. Nothing suspicious. I pulled out my wallet, logged into the website, clicked to renew. But when I went to use our shared card, the transaction failed. Weird, I muttered. I opened the banking app to check for fraud or a limit alert, and that's when I saw it. A charge from a boutique hotel 2 cities over. Not just any hotel, a spa resort. One we used to go to, actually. A little place with warm lighting and soft music and fire pits outside every room. The kind of place people go to unwind or connect or celebrate anniversaries. The transaction had gone through just 2 hours earlier. I stared at the line item on the screen. Haley's name on the reservation. One guest listed under her account. But something about it didn't feel right. I clicked deeper. Thankfully, she was still logged into the booking site on our shared laptop. That's where I saw it, the full reservation details. Double occupancy, queen suite, dinner for 2, couple spa experience. It was all right there, spelled out in neutral hotel language that somehow made it worse. I scrolled to the bottom. Guest, Haley. Additional guest, Brian C. I didn't recognize the name. My pulse started to race. I Googled the name. Nothing came up immediately. A few LinkedIn profiles. One real estate agent in Georgia. But then I searched her Instagram again and dug into the comments from weeks past. And there he was, Brian C. commenting under one of her older posts, "So proud of you. You deserve the world." I clicked his profile. Private. No mutual friends. My hands were shaking. I checked her iCloud backup. Years ago, when she first started her coaching stuff, I helped her set up an autosync to a second account just in case she lost her phone. We both forgot about it. I never deleted it. I never had a reason to. Until now. I opened the gallery. The sync had been running quietly for months. The most recent folder synced earlier that morning. Photos taken from a balcony, probably their hotel room overlooking a garden I remembered from one of our past stays. Haley stood in the frame, barefoot, wearing the robe from the spa. She was holding a champagne glass, her head tilted slightly, smiling towards someone off camera. Then came another photo. Him. Tall. Athletic. Mid-30s, maybe. His arm was around her waist. They were both barefoot, grinning. A table between them, 2 plates, 2 drinks, one hand resting on hers. The photo was captioned, "Finally some happiness." I stared at it for a long time. Not just because of the betrayal, but because of those words. Finally some happiness. Like I'd been the obstacle all along. Like our marriage had been the prison, and this man, this lie was her salvation. I kept scrolling. Voice notes. Screensh *TS. Saved messages from WhatsApp and Telegram. All of it unlocked and censored raw. I hate lying to him. But I need this. I feel alive with you. I forgot what this felt like. I wish we didn't have to hide. Message after message. Each one carving a little deeper. And there it was, laid out in digital stone, the whole affair. This wasn't a one-night mistake. It wasn't some moment of weakness. It had been happening for months, planned, nurtured, fed like a secret garden growing behind my back. He wasn't some random guy from a bar. He was one of her clients. They met during a coaching session, apparently. He was going through a life transition, whatever that meant. She started mentoring him, then meeting him, then sleeping with him. She talked to him about me, about our marriage, about how she felt trapped and unseen and tired of playing wife. They had names for me. The anchor, the comfort zone, as if I were a piece of furniture in her life, a symbol of all the things she was trying to escape. The texts weren't just romantic. They were logistical, cold, planned. They coordinated hotel stays, calculated alibis, synced calendars. They scheduled their lies. At one point, he messaged her, "Did you delete the messages from your backup?" She replied, "Of course. I'm not stupid." Except she hadn't. She'd forgotten the original backup I set up. And now I was reading every word. It didn't feel real. It felt like I was eavesdropping on someone else's life, except that someone was me. Or the version of me she needed to lie to. I didn't know what to do at first. I sat there in the dark, surrounded by the hum of the fridge, the distant sound of a car driving past, and the blinding silence of betrayal. For a while, I couldn't cry, couldn't scream, couldn't speak. I just sat there, staring at my laptop, watching my marriage fall apart in text bubbles and voice memos. I clicked on one of the recordings. Haley's voice came through, soft, giggly. I wish I could bottle this feeling. Every time we're together, I feel like I'm finally becoming who I'm supposed to be. The background noise was wind, laughter, clinking glasses. "You make me feel seen." He doesn't even ask me how I am anymore. I stopped the recording. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. But I didn't. Because in that moment, rage would have been a luxury. Instead, I just sat there, stone still, heart crumbling, realizing that the person I loved, trusted, built a life with, had been living another life, parallel to mine, with another man. And I had never even seen the tracks. It was like she built an entire world behind a curtain, carefully lifting it only when I was too distracted or too trusting to notice. I realized something then, maybe the worst part of all. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the rehearsals. The way she kept showing up at dinner, smiling. The way she kissed me goodnight after whispering someone else's name hours earlier. The way she asked if I wanted anything from the store while planning weekend getaways with another man. She had been rehearsing normal while performing betrayal. I closed the laptop slowly. My chest hurt. Not metaphorically, actually hurt. Like I'd been running for miles without air. I walked outside into the yard and sat on the back steps. The sky was quiet. I listened to the hum of the streetlights, the rustle of tree leaves in the wind. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually I looked up at the stars and thought. So this is what the end feels like. Not loud, not explosive. Just a long, quiet unraveling of everything you thought was real. And the worst part? She was still out there, lying, laughing, loving someone else while I sat in the ruins she left behind. After the shock wore off, and that took a while, I didn't go on some emotional rampage. No screaming into pillows, no dramatic speeches, no broken wine glasses or long drives into the night. I didn't even call her. It was almost scary how quiet I became. Like something in me shut off. I think part of me knew that reacting too fast, too loud, would only serve her story. I could already hear how she'd spin it. He overreacted, he was unstable, we were already struggling. No. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this clean. I wasn't going to let her make me the villain in a story she authored through betrayal. So I started planning. The first thing I did was back everything up. The hotel booking, the synced photos, the voice notes, the texts. I made a folder. Then 2 copies of that folder. One on a flash drive I kept with me. One on a cloud account she didn't know existed. Next, I made a list. I wrote down every excuse she'd given me over the last few months. Every fake work trip, every gym session, every client breakthrough call that had conveniently lasted 3 hours. Then I matched them to the photos and timestamps. It was almost insulting how many overlapped perfectly. The night she told me she was going to a networking mixer, there she was in a hotel bathroom mirror wearing lingerie and biting her lip for the camera. Every lie had a matching truth. And now I had both. Then I moved to the finances. Quietly. Precisely. We had 2 joint accounts, one checking, one savings, and a shared credit card. I left the checking alone, that was where she'd expect money to flow through normally. But I drained the savings. Moved it into a private account under my name only. I changed the password on the shared credit card account and requested a new card sent to my office, not the house. I flagged suspicious charges under her name, not to cancel them but to freeze the card for fraud prevention. I didn't want her to panic. Not yet. I just wanted her to feel a little friction. A little resistance. Enough to make her question her control. Then came the legal stuff. I researched lawyers online for hours that night. Not the budget kind. The kind with Yelp reviews that mentioned phrases like pitbull in court and my ex never saw it coming. I scheduled consultations with 2 of them. Both took me seriously the moment I showed them the file. One of them, a woman named Laurel, didn't even flinch when I told her the whole story. She's going to try to manipulate this, she said flatly, flipping through the photo evidence. People like this always do. Your job is to stay 3 steps ahead. Think like a chess player. No emotion. Just strategy. I hired her on the spot. Next came the surveillance. I needed confirmation. Not just digital proof. Real-world evidence. So I reached out to a contact a friend had used once during a custody battle, a private investigator. Guy named Nick. Wore denim shirts and drank espresso like it was water. Totally unassuming. Sharp as hell. I don't need you to catch her in the act, I told him. I already have the act. I need context. I need clarity. I want to know how far this goes and with who. He didn't blink. Give me 72 hours. He gave me 48. Security footage from the hotel. Not just of her and Brian arriving together, but of them entering the spa. Holding hands in the lobby. Laughing. Kissing in the elevator. No ambiguity. No shadows. Crystal clear betrayal. Then came the social media cross-reference. Brian was more connected than I realized. Not just a client, he followed a few of Haley's coaching friends, had liked several of her posts months back, even commented on one from over a year ago with "what a view" winking face when she posted a photo from a poolside lounge chair. The same photo she told me had been taken during a solo retreat. Turns out Brian had been orbiting her life long before I ever heard his name. The kicker? He wasn't single. Nick found out Brian was married. Wife's name was Tessa. 2 kids. Lived in the suburbs 1 county over. Family man. Or so everyone thought. I debated telling her. Not out of spite, but because I figured she deserved to know. But I waited. That moment would come later. For now, I was focused on one thing, control. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw accusations. I was going to build a case so airtight, so undeniable, that when I confronted Haley, she wouldn't be able to lie her way out of it. Not with charm. Not with tears. Not with fake apologies or deflection or, "but I still love you," theatrics. So I waited until she came home. She walked through the door like nothing was different. Hair tied back, suitcase rolling behind her. Wearing a hoodie she always put on after long drives. She kissed me on the cheek. Again too quickly. and started talking about how productive the strategy session had been. "Such a good vibe," she said. "I feel so recentered." I nodded. I didn't say much. She asked if I wanted takeout. I said sure. We sat on the couch that night watching a sitcom she always loved. She laughed at the right moments. Texted someone between scenes. Probably him. I watched her. Not with anger. With curiosity. Like observing a snake sunbathing after swallowing something whole. When she went upstairs to shower, I retrieved the folder. I waited until she came back down. Hair damp. Skin flushed. She smelled like lavender and something unfamiliar. "Hey," I said, patting the seat next to me. "Can we talk?" She hesitated. Just slightly. Then smiled and sat down. "What's up?" I handed her the folder. She looked confused. Opened it. Saw the first photo. Then the second. Then the booking receipt. Then the text thread. Then the security footage printout. By the time she got to the **TS of her voice messages, her hands were trembling. She didn't say anything for a long time. When she finally looked at me, her mouth opened, but I held up a hand. "No explanations," I said. "No stories. No deflections. Adam, no. I already know everything. I know who he is. I know how long. I know where. I even know about Tessa." Her face drained of color. "I've spoken to a lawyer. I've secured our finances. I've documented everything. I don't need an apology. I don't want a conversation." She looked like a child caught in a lie too complex to unravel. "I just want you to understand something," I continued. "You didn't just cheat on me. You constructed a version of reality you expected me to live in while you lived another one behind my back." Her lips parted. Eyes wet. Still no words. "You turned our marriage into a stage play. You rehearsed your lines. Hit your cues. Made sure the set looked just believable enough that I wouldn't check the wings." I stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. "You think I'm here to scream at you? Make you feel guilty? No. That would mean I still care enough to want something from you." I turned around and looked at her. "I don't." She finally broke. "Adam, please. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did." Repeatedly, methodically, quietly. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "We can fix this." "No, we can't." I walked upstairs. That night, she slept in the guest room. I slept like a man who had finally stepped out of a burning building. A week later, Haley invited me to a dinner party. Let that sink in. After everything, after the exposure, the folder, the silence, she still had the audacity to host a dinner, as if nothing had happened, as if we were still the couple we used to pretend to be. And even more surreal, she sent the invitation over text like it was some casual office function. "Hey, just a small dinner with friends Friday night. Would be nice if you came. No pressure. No pressure." Like I hadn't already caught her building a life behind my back. Like I hadn't watched her smile through lies for months. And now she wanted me to sit at a table with our mutual friends and pretend like the whole house hadn't already burned to the ground. I didn't reply right away. I stared at the message for a long time, wondering what game she was playing. Maybe she thought if she put on enough of a show, she could salvage her image. Spin the story. Keep the mask on. Or maybe she was still clinging to some hope that I'd fall back into old habits. Keeping the peace, going along with the plan, being the quiet, agreeable husband who didn't make scenes. But this wasn't that version of me anymore. Still, I said yes. Not because I wanted to go. Not because I wanted to see her friends, or ours, I guess. I said yes because I knew exactly what she was trying to do. And I was done letting her control the narrative. The dinner was at our house. She cooked, lit candles, wore a navy blue dress I hadn't seen in months. Her hair was curled the way she used to wear it when we first started dating. She even played that mellow jazz playlist we used to put on during weekends when we pretended we were more sophisticated than we really were. I came downstairs around 6:30, dressed in dark jeans and a collared shirt. I didn't say much. Just nodded when she greeted me, handed me a glass of wine, and acted like it was just another Friday. The guests arrived in waves. Samantha. Her fiancé, Dylan. A few of Haley's coaching friends, including a woman named Brooke who once told me I was too quiet to be a good match for Haley. Another couple I barely knew but had seen on her Instagram. Everyone was smiling, laughing, complimenting the food, the lighting, the playlist. I stood at the edge of the room most of the night, watching the performance unfold. Haley was radiant, confident. She moved between conversations like a hostess on a reality show, pouring wine, telling stories, laughing a little too loud. It was like watching someone act in a play they wrote for themselves. And for a while, it worked. People bought it. Or at least, they played along. Until she slipped. It was toward the end of dinner. Everyone was full. The wine had loosened nerves. Conversations were flowing a little less carefully and people were starting to let their guards down. We were sitting around the table, empty plates pushed aside, candles flickering low. Haley was in the middle of a story, some convoluted anecdote about her recent retreat, when she glanced at me and dropped this little grenade. I've just realized how important it is to be seen, you know? To really feel like someone hears you. I'm finally spending time with someone who listens. She said it lightly, casually, but with just enough emphasis. There was a beat of silence. Samantha shifted in her chair. Dylan coughed awkwardly. Brooke looked from Haley to me and back again. Someone laughed, nervously, like they weren't sure if it was a joke. I stared at Haley across the table. She wasn't looking at me. She was smiling at her wine glass like it had just told her a secret. And that's when I knew. She was still trying to control the story. This was her narrative now. She wasn't the woman who cheated. She was the woman who was unheard, who needed to feel seen, who had outgrown the marriage. She wasn't the villain, she was the misunderstood heroine in her own coming-of-age movie. I set my glass down slowly. Everyone at the table turned toward me. I could feel the shift in the air. The kind of pause that comes before a crash. I looked at Haley. Not angry. Not sad. Just done. I'm glad everyone's here, I said calmly. She glanced up, suddenly aware that she might have pushed too far. I think it's good that people know the truth. The room froze. What truth? Brooke asked cautiously, her voice thin. I kept my eyes on Haley. The truth behind Haley's retreats. The truth behind her work trips. The truth about who she's really been spending time with. Adam, Haley said quickly, her voice almost scolding. Not now. No, I said louder this time. Now is perfect. Everyone was staring. Forks in midair. Glasses halfway to lips. You could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. She's been having an affair, I said evenly. For months. With one of her clients. I found the texts. The photos. The hotel bookings. I even have security footage. Dead silence. Haley's face drained of color. She opened her mouth but no sound came out. I kept going. She told him I didn't ask about her day. That she felt unseen. So she built a second life. One where she could feel validated while lying to the person who actually loved her. Someone whispered Jesus, barely audible. I stood up. Adjusted my jacket. Looked around the table. I just wanted everyone to know. Since she brought it up. Then I walked out. Left the room in stunned silence. Left her sitting there, frozen mid-smile like an actress who forgot her next line. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I didn't give her a single ounce of dramatic energy to feed on. I just left. Outside, the night was cool. Still. I got in my car, hands steady, breath calm. I felt weightless. Not happy. Not vindicated. Just free. Later that night, the aftermath started. Samantha texted me first. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Then Dylan. She's been talking about that retreat guy 4 weeks. She said he was just a client. Jesus, man. By morning, the cracks in her world had big asterisk end to show. One of her coaching friends posted something cryptic on Instagram. Some people wear masks so long they forget who they are underneath. It got dozens of comments, most of them vague but pointed. 2 days later, someone anonymously emailed me a voice memo. Haley's voice, talking to someone, probably Brooke, about how she was managing the narrative and framing things in a way people could understand. I didn't even listen to the whole thing. Her world, the image she'd worked so hard to protect, was crumbling. Her lies weren't just mine to hold anymore. They were leaking into her circle, into her curated version of reality. I didn't have to say a word. The truth did the work. Sometimes that's all it takes, not a scream, not revenge. Just the quiet, unmovable presence of truth spoken plainly like a mirror no one asked to look into. And once people see it, they never look at her the same again. After that dinner, the walls started closing in around Haley and fast. The woman who once curated every part of her image, from her social posts to her so-called strategy sessions, suddenly had no control over the conversation. And people noticed. 2 days after the dinner, I heard from her mother, crying, confused. "I don't even recognize her anymore," she said. "What happened to my daughter?" I didn't have an answer. Then came the job fallout. An anonymous tip, likely from someone at that dinner, triggered an internal audit at her coaching agency. Turns out those weekend trips weren't just for pleasure. She'd used company cards, misrepresented expenses, even billed spa treatments as client wellness sessions. Within a week, she was let go pending further review. Her circle thinned. Friends stopped replying. Someone unfollowed her on every platform. And the man she risked it all for? Brian? He blocked her. His wife found out. Filed a complaint. Haley called him repeatedly, voicemails I found later on our shared iCloud, but he never called back. Suddenly, she wasn't the empowered, self-actualized woman she projected. She was just alone. And for the first time in all this, I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. Because she hadn't just betrayed me, she demolished her own life in the process. All I had to do was step aside and let gravity do the rest. 6 months passed. Quiet, steady. I moved to a small studio on the other side of town, nothing fancy, but it was mine. No shared closets. No makeup on the sink. Just space to think. I adopted a rescue dog named Toby. I took long walks. I read books I'd meant to read for years. I didn't date. I wasn't ready. I just healed. One afternoon, walking past a coffee shop, I saw her. Haley. Sitting alone, shoulders hunched, hands wrapped around a paper cup. Her hair was tied back messily, no makeup, no glow. She looked up and saw me. For a second, we locked eyes. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just kept walking. Not out of cruelty. But because I had nothing left to give her, not my pain, not my hate, not even my words. And in that moment, I realized something. The real revenge wasn't in exposing her. It was in surviving her. And finally, I was free.